Welcome back. Christopher Luxon will deliver his first State of the Nation speech on Sunday as leader of the National Party. Hoi anō e te iwi kua hono mai ia. He joins us now live from his home in Auckland. Tēnā koe, mōrena, Christopher.
Morena, great to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. You've called this the most divisive government in recent memory. Given what we saw at Parliament this week, do you regret saying that?
Look, no party supported the protests in Parliament that we saw. They were highly abusive, they were illegal, and as we saw, the behaviour at the end was just reprehensible. And so, I'm very proud that all parties actually held the line and said, what we're seeing there is not acceptable to any of us, and that was really good. The point I was trying to make over the last week was that there are reasonable, law-abiding, well-informed New Zealanders who are actually saying, hey, listen, I've gone off, I've done everything right, I've followed all the rules, I've been compliant, I've gone off and got triple vaxxed, but I'm unclear as to where we're going. And if you're a business owner up here in Auckland and you've gone through a period of lockdown and you're trying to work out whether your cafes, when will it get back to normal again, if you're a tourism business having done that, if you've been a person trying to come home to see a dying mother or you want to go off and see the grandkids in Australia, we don't have clarity. And in fairness, I thought the government did a good job in 2020, clearly articulating where we were going and how we were going to get there. But actually, since 2021 and 2022, it's been an absolute shambles and being made up on the fly. And New Zealanders are frustrated about that and they want some clarity. And all we're asking for is, let's lay out the roadmap for it.
Yeah, it was the timing of that speech that you delivered. Do you see that as emboldening those protesters? And was the timing off?
Absolutely not. It's important that we can have a conversation that good law-abiding New Zealanders that want to raise concerns about the COVID plan don't just get lumped in with those protesters, don't get lumped in with that reprehensible behaviour, but can still legitimately ask really reasonable questions of government to say, where are we going? You stepped in with a whole bunch of restrictions and how are you going to step out? And that's all that they're asking for. Yeah,
the speech was around division, the division amongst the nation. Speaking on that, you're National's fifth leader in just 4 years. Leaking has been rife within the party. What will you do when someone steps out of line?
Well, look, I'd say to you that, I've been the leader now for almost 4 months and we've had a really good period of time. We've actually reset the party. We've got the right people in the right places. They're focused on opposing the government and proposing new ideas, and you'll continue to see that through the course of the year. So, as I said before, we've reset, we've turned the page, we've left that behind us. I'm very clear with all of my MPs. I've spoken to each and every one of them about the expectations I have of them, and will continue to do so. So expectations are clear. We're going forward. I can tell you the reaction that you're seeing with the public and the public reaction we're getting, the number of supporters that we're getting, people wanting to get involved with our party, people wanting to become candidates at the next election is already, stepping up big time. So, we're really focused on the things that matter. The thing that matters the most at the moment is the cost of living crisis that New Zealanders are going through. We need to come up with ideas for that.
And we'll get to that very shortly. But first, in terms of meeting your MPs, I understand you'll be meeting with each of your 32 MPs in the coming week. That seems like a business-centric approach. How do you measure an opposition MP's performance?
Well, really what I want them to be able to do is just make sure that they're out there engaging with the community. They're out of their offices in Wellington. They're actually talking to people in the community at the front line. Just this week I've been at the Christchurch City Mission. Last week I was at the Auckland City Mission. I was out seeing Tui Ora and New Plymouth recently. You actually got to get out and about and actually see the hurt, the pain, the frustration. Start to work with some of the stakeholders that are in the industries that they're part of and actually work out what ideas have they got. What can we put voice to? How do we actually solve these problems that we have?
And how do we measure your performance, Christopher? How do we measure your performance? What are your KPIs?
Well, my KPI is very simple. It's to win the election in 2023. That's all that I'm focused on. So that's all that matters.
Good response there.
And so it's very, very binary for me as the leader of the National Party.
So if you were the Prime Minister, which portfolios would you take?
Look, I haven't thought too deeply about that. At the moment, I've been focusing on the security and intelligence portfolios, and it's also given me freedom to be able to work with each of my MPs on the key portfolios as we try and think through, well, what are the ideas that we have around education? What would we do around mental health? What would we do about removing inequality in this country? How do we actually deal with this cost of living crisis? So, I'll work that out closer to the time and down the road.
National stance on Māori seats has flip-flopped over the years. Will you be standing candidates in Māori seats?
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. And so that's something that we'll work through in the next few months. But yes, that's very much our intention.
Wow, thank you. You held National's Māori development portfolio for 8 months last year. So tell us, what policies do you have to entice Māori to vote National at the next election?
Well, look, I mean, the bottom line is, to be honest, we need to be a national party. And what that means is we need to be able to talk to every community across New Zealand, to be able to present our centre-right politics, principles and beliefs, and to be able to articulate them to each and every community in the country. And so it's no different with respect to Māori. Māori have actually done incredibly well under national governments. If you think about the treaty settlements that were done under Chris Finlayson, if you think about the Māori economy and how that was unleashed and has been booming, and if you think about even progress that we were starting to make around education with Māori outcomes as well. So, for me, it's, that I've been quite clear in my Treaty of Waitangi remarks and, around Waitangi Day remarks and iwi leaders forums as well, that, Māori can do well with national governments, and so we've got to be able to make the case for that. I appreciate we've got a lot of work to do, but we should get on and get going with that.
OK, during that time last year, Judith Collins called He Puapua a separatist plan. What's your view of He Puapua?
Well, look, I mean, that's sort of, the government sort of seems to put it on the back burner from what I can work out. For me, it's very clear for me that we are a country built on strong bicultural traditions, which we're incredibly proud about, but we are also a modern multicultural country going forward in the world as well. And so it's important that we can represent all of that in New Zealand.
What's your view of the report itself, He Puapua, the plan?
Look, I've read it. My view is that it's a set of ideas. They're not ideas that we support when you follow it through to its logical conclusion, to have two separate states. We support a lot of devolution and localism. That's exactly what the National Party is about. We trust people, we empower people in community, in business, in government, local government to get on and get things done. Those closest to the problem should solve them. But we don't believe that we're one country.
Do you support, do you still want to scrap the new Māori Health Authority? Is that still the stance today?
Well, our bigger problem is that we're spending $500 million, $500 million. It's going to be going straight through to management consultants, and we're not getting any improved outcomes as a result. Even the government's own papers are saying they're not going to see improved outcomes for years. So for us, it's a restructure that isn't leading to better outcomes, and that's what we're fixated on in the National Party. Is we're here because we want to solve problems and we want to get better outcomes. So we're up for any conversation or any structure that delivers outcomes, but you can't go restructure something and not get an improved outcome for everyday people.
Let's move on to Ukraine. You've repeatedly called for New Zealand to have independent sanctions. Let's say we had them. Now's your chance. What sanctions would you put on Russia?
Well, look, it's a set of legislation that Jerry Brownlee proposed last year. The government rejected, but I think it's a really good bill, and it would make sense for the situation that we're encountering right now. The fact that New Zealand is reliant on multilateral institutions like the UN, they can condemn the actions of Russia, but as you've seen with the Security Council and Russia having a power of veto, it's rather meaningless. We do need to stand with our partners in the West, have similar liberal democracies with the same set of values, and have our own set of legislation around it. The good news is, talking with Jerry Brownlee and Nanaia Mahuta, had discussions last night. I think that they can find a way where we can work together on a bill that actually, if we can get into Parliament next week, we can pass that law. I think it would be a really good thing for New Zealand to underscore our condemnation of Russia and its actions. It gives us some flexibility to be able to think about trade embargoes and asset freezing and a bunch of things like that. But these are good things that we should be doing to underscore our seriousness about it. And the other thing I'd say to you is that I think we should really action our idea to have a humanitarian visa, a special humanitarian visa for the 1,500 Ukrainian Kiwis and their immediate family that are sitting in Ukraine at the moment in a very desperate set of circumstances. So for me, I'd love us to push on with that as well and actually be able to offer that up to the immediate family of the 1,500 Ukrainian Kiwis that are here.
Right, you called Putin completely unhinged. Did you go too far with that comment?
No, I think most New Zealanders would agree with me about that. I didn't use those statements lightly. The bottom line is he's got no interest in diplomacy, as we've seen over the last 24 hours.
All right, we're going to move on. This Sunday, you're giving your State of the Nation speech. What are you going to say?
Well, look, I think people in New Zealand understand and believe that the National Party are the best people to run the economy. And the economy is in real trouble at the moment. Essentially, we've got a major cost of living crisis. Everyday hard-working Kiwis can't get ahead. every New Zealander is worse off than they were 12 months ago. Inflation and the price of goods has gone up over 6%, and their wages are only growing up 2.5%. So their money doesn't go as far, they can't buy as much, and as a result, they're going backwards. And so I want to be able to talk about that, and I want to talk about, you know, what sort of ideas, in the spirit that I've been saying right from when I became the leader. We will oppose the government, but we're also going to propose ideas, exactly as we're doing around Ukraine.
At the moment, what we're saying is that we have got record low unemployment. There is record low unemployment figures out there at the moment. The government books are tracking way better than forecasted. The economy's done really well during the pandemic. The high cost of living is a result of global trends like what's happening over in Ukraine and the pandemic itself. So, hey, is it as you say it is, as dismal as you say it is, the state of our economy at the moment?
Yeah, when you add in it, you can look at what you've just referenced there as a series of macroeconomic indicators. What we're talking about is at the microeconomic level for the average person in New Zealand. They all know when they've seen, the average tank at the pump's gone up $40. Rents under this government have gone up $7,200 after tax to rent the same house you had 4 years ago. When you think about the big increase, 13% increase in food prices that we've seen. So everyone understands that the price of things have got really expensive, and they know their wages aren't going up in the same amount, and so they know they're going backwards at an individual and a personal level. And that's really something that we've got to think about.
All right, just quickly, final question. It's International Women's Day on Tuesday. Are you a feminist?
Absolutely. I want my daughter to have exactly the same opportunities that my son has. And as you look at my record at Air New Zealand, where we worked really hard to build women from 16% of the top 100 jobs up to 44% in a very short period of time. We moved from a double, 9% pay equity gap down to a 0% pay equity gap. And I think if you look at the front bench lineup in the National Party at the moment, I think we're doing the right things. So I'm a big fan of diversity and inclusion. We need a lot more of it in the National Party, as I've said many times before. But I want my daughter to have the same opportunities as my son.
Great to have a cordial with you this morning. Thank you for joining us, Christopher Luxon, the National Party leader.
Thank you. Take care.